11 years ago when I was 8 years old. Me and my family, my mom, dad, and brother, as well as my brother's girlfriend, who was living with us at the time, went on holiday to Australia to visit some relatives on my mom's side of the family. They lived in the rural parts of Victoria, and to give a basic summary of the area, they lived on a farm. The house was surrounded by various fields. When facing the house, on the left side, there were 2 fields, and then at the far end of these fields, there was a highly wooded area with a dirt track running through it. My grandparents, the relatives that lived there, would often go on nature rambles through the forest to spot the wildlife that lived within there. My mother, being a dedicated bird spotter, decides to head off with me and Lisa, my brother's girlfriend, into the forest, as we both had a fascination with wildlife. We must have been walking along the dirt track for around 10 minutes, taking pictures of the various animals we'd seen. We passed by a line of motorbikes and around 7 bikers having a barbecue. One of the bikers politely smiled at my mother, and she responded with a simple, "Good evening." As we walked past them, one of the bikers approached us and asked us where we were going. We told them, and they informed us that they had been camping in this area for around 2 nights. They told us to be careful, as people had been shooting game in the forest. These people apparently had aggressive dogs, so we were told to be careful. Around 15 minutes later, I'd spotted an old barn, which I dashed off to explore, being the adventurous child I was, while my mother and Lisa observed a bird of some kind. I didn't tell them where I was going. As I approached the barn, I saw 3 large dogs tied up outside. They were Rottweilers, and they seemed incredibly aggressive. They were on chains and barking and snarling a lot. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed they were for hunting, and looking back, Rottweilers aren't hunting dogs. There was also an old mattress on the floor outside, which appeared to be covered in brown stains and emanated a foul aroma. I was around 3 feet away from the mattress, but the smell was unbelievably powerful. As I was going to turn around to return to the others, I saw a man emerging from the barn. The image of this man is one of the few things I remember clearly from this day. He was very tall, about 6'4", and was wearing a blue pinstripe suit. The strangest thing about him was that he was wearing a large top hat. His clothes seemed very worn, and his face, the parts of it that weren't covered by a large brown beard, were red, as if he'd just been working out on a hot day. I remember the man smiled and approached me. I asked him if he was a magician, to which he said, "No, I look after doggies. Do you like doggies?" I told him I did. This is when things started to get weird. He began to approach me and asked if I wanted to come inside and have my picture taken with the dogs. I politely refused and said my mom would be looking for me. He grabbed my hand lightly and said it would only take a second. At that point, I heard my mom shouting to the man, demanding to know what he was doing. She had come looking for me. The man simply let go and just stared at her. She asked him again, in which he continued to just blankly stare. He didn't say a word. My mom immediately grabbed my arm, and me, her, and Lisa walked as quickly as possible back to the entrance. We got about halfway there when I turned around and told my mother that the magician was following us. She turned around, and sure enough, he was power walking behind us. My mom screamed at him and asked what he wanted. He didn't reply, again, simply continued power walking toward us. At that point, my mom began walking even faster, to the point that she was dragging me along. The next part of the story is mostly a blur to me. I remember my mom gasping, picking me up, and sprinting full pelt with me while screaming for help. My mom tells me that the man had begun running toward us and managed to grab my leg. She said that Lisa jumped on the man's back and scratched all across his face before he threw her on the floor. My mom apparently kicked the man in the testicles, grabbed Lisa off the ground, and ran with me over her shoulder. I remember we slowed down shortly afterwards and stopped to catch our breath. We continued walking over for the magician to show up again from the bush area. My mom began to panic and started running with me again. The man was sprinting after us. We were nearing the area where the bikers were camping, and my mom screamed for help. 2 two bikers emerged from the trees nearby, and my mom screamed, "That man tried to kidnap my son!" The magician turned around and immediately bolted in the other direction. One of the bikers pursued him, but unfortunately, the magician had a head start. I remember the bikers were incredibly nice, and I soon forgot about the strange man after one of the bikers let me sit up on his motorbike while my mom and Lisa went in the sidecar. The guy took us to the nearest town and dropped us off at the police station where my mom filed a report. After that, he gave us all a lift back home, which was really nice. I never got to thank him at the time as I didn't really understand the situation. But on the off chance that you're a reader of Let's Not Meet, I want to say thanks. As for you, magician, whose intentions for me I'm unsure of, let's not meet ever again.